Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Penny Pincher Firearms. Now today we're going to be shooting a rifle that is just close to my heart. It's not at all a penny pincher. I've had it appraised at about $4,000. It's my Stomperud Krag. It was made in 1903. It's a cut down version of the M1894 Norwegian Krag. It shoots 6.5 by 55. People call it Swedish, some people call it Scandinavian, and I think it's more appropriate to call it 6.5 Scandinavian. Has a 5-round magazine, and this one is it's very special to me because when I was a kid I always wanted a Krag, and I think it was 2012 I finally got myself one, and I didn't realize it until probably about 2 months later that I had a Stomperud Krag, which is pretty rare. There's about, some people say about 1,500. I've seen numbers like almost as exact as 1,672. I can't say for sure, but there weren't very many of these made. And what makes this one especially special is it doesn't have any civilian release marks or import marks on it anywhere. I've literally looked everywhere on this rifle trying to find an import mark. No go. So that's kind of an interesting thing. It kind of makes it seem like it's a World War II bringback. Now, we'll be shooting 5 rounds out of it today. I don't expect high accuracy out of it just because I think somebody stored it after shooting some corrosive ammunition and it just didn't fare well. So it has a pretty rough bore. Otherwise, the action is beautiful. It's just one of my favorite actions. It's butter smooth, like so many people love to say about Krags, and just in every way that it's a handy rifle. It's super comfortable. It's way lighter than the U.S. Krag, and it's about the same length as a K98. It has a feature on here that actually mates it with a K98 sight hood, so that's kind of a neat little thing that connects it to its reality. Another thing was actually the cleaning rod, because the Stomperud Krags basically had just cut down cleaning rods. So there were a lot of features that actually had it identified when I took it to get appraised. Now, if you're curious how much I paid for it originally, I paid $500. Mostly because I bought it from Cabela's. They thought that somebody had bubba'd the barrel, which basically means some dude just came along and cut it down himself. And another thing was non-matching serial numbers and all these other things that basically made them think that somebody made it from a bunch of pieces of a Krag. And lo and behold, lucky for me, it turns out that it's a Stomperud Krag, and it has parts that look like they were made during World War II just because they were rough hewn, like the trigger guard and the springs on the stock, but other things that are really high quality, like the receiver and the barrel, with the exception of the rifling. So let's get to shooting. Loading the Norwegian Krag. It's pretty much the same as loading the US Krag. In fact, both Krags are basically the same, with a few cuts in them in the Norwegian one to lighten it. So same thing, you have this lever here, pull down on it. I'm shooting 140 grain soft points. These are Hornady soft points. They're backed by 22 grains of IMR 4759. It's probably my favorite target load. Anything with 140 grains with this nice long body is a really good round for the Norwegian Krag. It was designed for 140 grain bullets in the first place, so you may as well shoot what it was designed for. So same thing as the US Krag, put them in nose first. There's not as much to worry about getting caught in there because there's no rim. And these were truly designed for pointed bullets, so it loads even smoother. Getting some time to shoot my Norwegian Krag is always a pleasure. I just love this rifle. It may not be super accurate, but the recoil is so light, and it's just such a comfortable rifle with this nice pistol grip on it. So don't expect any high accuracy, just expect a nice rifle. 5 rounds. We'll take a look. I kind of like that. That's not bad for having a really rough bore and shooting fairly quickly. Once again, I shot all 5 rounds in the space of about 1 minute. I talked a little bit before, of course. And I can be happy with that. That's decent accuracy at 50 yards with a really rough bore. And I imagine if I took a little bit more time, I might even be able to get everything within that 9 ring. So I could be happy with that. So you saw the target. You saw how reasonably well this shot at 50 yards. And personally, you know, it's still one of my favorite rifles. I love the Krag design, of course, but I love the feel of the Norwegian Krag. It actually feels better machined than the US Krag. As far as I can tell, these were both, the US Krag and the Norwegian Krag, made in the same year, or at least around the same time. The serial numbers on my US Krag, it's been debatable because I've gotten conflicting information. Some people showed it as being made in 1904, which is a little weird because we adopted the 1903 Springfield in 1903. I did hear that maybe Springfield Arsenal had a few contracts that they needed to fill out, so they continued them until 1904. I don't know. I'm personally genuinely more inclined to believe it was made in 1903. It just seems to make more sense to me. So this one was made in 1903 as well. This is just, it's one of my favorite rifles. It has low recoil. It's very comfortable. It has some really fascinating history behind it. And there's some history to it that, you know, I'm never going to know, because the stock has a different serial number than the receiver and the barrel. The bolt has a matching serial number. Everything on the receiver has a matching serial number except for the door on the magazine and the follower. So, not sure what happened. I imagine it was sitting in an arsenal somewhere in Norway just before World War II. And they just kind of slapped it together with a bunch of spare parts and parts that they made at the time, because the trigger guard and these barrel band springs, they seem like they're a little rougher than other parts. So I think those were made in the factory in the 40s during the Nazi occupation. But like I said, everything else is really in good shape except for the bore. But you saw, it shoots reasonably accurate at 50 yards. And if I took more time, I'm sure I would have gotten everything pretty close within that 9 ring. So, yeah, I'm quite pleased with it. And like, you know, I always say, a good gun doesn't have to cost a pretty penny. This is a good gun, and it did cost $500, but in reality, it should have cost way more. So this was a really good gun that did not cost a pretty penny at all, even, you know, in that relative sense, $500 versus the appraised $4,000. So I'm happy with this rifle, and I'm never getting rid of it. This and my Luger and my US Krag, those are the ones I'm married to. So, hey guys, so if you liked the video, go ahead and press like. If you like the channel, go ahead and press subscribe. And if you really like the channel and you want to become a patron, go check out my Patreon at patreon.com/pennypincherfirearms. And always remember, a good gun doesn't have to cost a pretty penny.